The massacre of St. George's Fields occurred on 10 May 1768 when government soldiers opened fire on demonstrators that had gathered at St. George's Fields, Southwark in South London. The protest was against the imprisonment of the radical Member of Parliament John Wilkes for writing an article that severely criticised King George III. After the reading of the Riot Act telling the crowds to disperse within the hour, 6 or 7 people were killed when fired on by troops. Background: in June 1762, John Wilkes started the newspaper The North Briton. After one article was published on 23 April 1763 severely attacking George III, the king and his ministers tried to prosecute Wilkes for seditious libel. However, Lord Chief Justice Lord Mansfield ruled at his trial that as an MP, Wilkes was protected by parliamentary privilege, so he was released without conviction. Wilkes then proceeded to publish more material that was deemed offensive and libelous to the Crown. It was only after the House of Lords declared one of his poems to be obscene and blasphemous that moves were made to expel Wilkes from the House of Commons, but he fled to Paris before any expulsion or trial. In absentia, he was found guilty of obscene libel and seditious libel and was declared an outlaw on 19 January 1764. Wilkes hoped for a change in power to remove the charges, but this did not come to pass. As his French creditors began to pressure him in 1768, he had little choice but to return to England. Wilkes returned intending to stand as an MP on an anti-government ticket. The government did not issue warrants for his immediate arrest as it did not want to inflame popular support. Wilkes stood in London but came bottom of the poll of 7 candidates, possibly due to his late entry into the race for the position. But he was quickly elected MP for Middlesex, where most of his support was located. In April he surrendered himself to the King's Bench after waiving his parliamentary privilege to immunity. He was sentenced by Judge Joseph Yates to a year's imprisonment and fined £500, reduced to 10 months for his time already spent in prison. The Lord's sentence of outlawry was overturned. Wilkes was taken to King's Bench Prison in Southwark, South London. Riot. With news of his conviction and imprisonment, crowds began assembling on a large open space between Southwark and Lambeth called St. George's Field. Over the next 2 weeks numbers increased day after day. On 10 May as many as 15,000 people had gathered near the prison. They began chanting, "Wilkes and liberty, no king," and "Damn the king, damn the government, damn the justices," outside the prison. Concerned about the intent of the crowd, 4 justices of the peace from Surrey asked for military protection. A detachment of the Horse Grenadier Guards was sent to the prison. When the troops arrived, people shouted insults at the soldiers. A particularly obnoxious man wearing a red coat repeatedly goaded the troops. After a unit of soldiers was sent to apprehend him, he was chased to a barn. One of the soldiers shot a person inside wearing a red coat. However, the victim turned out to be an innocent young man named William Allen who worked at the farm. He was buried in the churchyard at Newington, where a monument was erected to his memory. The news of the death only inflamed the crowd, made worse when the JPs addressed the restless mob ordering it to disperse. Fearing that the situation was rapidly deteriorating and an attempt would be made to free Wilkes, the Riot Act was read while a call was made for more soldiers. The crowd grew restless. Stones were pelted at the soldiers who opened fire. Some fired into the crowd, but others fired over their heads. Several people were killed, including a passerby who was struck by bullets that were fired over the crowd. At least 15 people were wounded. With the outbreak of shooting, the crowd rapidly broke up, but word of the killings quickly spread, triggering fierce riots throughout the capital. Benjamin Franklin, who was in London at the time, reported of sawyers destroying sawmills, sailors unrigging all the outward-bound ships, watermen destroying private boats and threatening bridges. The crisis was so severe, it was rumoured that the king contemplated abdication. Aftermath. On 8 August, 2 soldiers were brought before a grand jury at the Surrey Assizes charged with the murder of William Allen. However, neither was indicted because one escaped from the jail attached to the courthouse. The grand jury also decided the other deaths were caused by chance medley. The Irish playwright and government supporter Hugh Kelly made a defence of the government's right to use force against Wilkes supporters. In 1770, Wilkes supporters started a riot at the production of Kelly's new play A Word to the Wise at the Drury Lane Theatre, forcing the abandonment of the production. On his release from prison in March 1770, Wilkes was appointed as sheriff in London. In 1774, he became Lord Mayor of London.